Sometimes the biggest, most powerful lessons on strategy come from, well, the most unexpected places. Today, we're going to dive into the world of motu faltu to pull out a really simple but powerful framework for solving pretty much any conflict you can think of.
And really, it all boils down to this one simple question. When you're faced with a problem, what's your first instinct? Do you build a wall or do you open a door? As we're about to find out, the right answer depends completely on what kind of challenge you're actually facing.
So, to figure this out, we're going to look at two stories. First, a village of mice being terrorized by a bully. And second, a home that's been invaded by a huge swarm of bees. See? Two very different problems, two very different threats, and, as we'll see, two totally different solutions.
All right, let's jump into our first case study, the bully and the empowered. And this one starts with a community that is absolutely paralyzed by fear. I mean, they can't even go about their daily lives.
So here's the problem. You've got this cat, Kalia, who is just terrorizing a village of mice. And he's not just some minor annoyance, right? He is a full-on oppressor. He's making it impossible for them to even gather food. Their whole society is just stuck. This isn't some misunderstanding. This is a straight-up bully with bad intentions. So when our heroes Motu and Patlu show up, look, they could have just scared the cat away themselves. That's the easy fix, right? But they know that's not going to last. So instead, they go for a much smarter, more powerful strategy. They decide to empower the mice to solve this problem for good. And their plan is basically a 4-step masterclass in empowerment. First step, rally the community. Get everyone on the same page. Step 2, craft your tools. They teach the mice how to make their own little weapons. Then step 3 is crucial, train for the challenge. Turn all that fear into focused action. And the final step? Confront as one. They face their bully together as a single, unified force.
And that right there? That's the real transformation. What was once just a bunch of scared, scattered individuals is now one single, united army. They're not victims anymore. They've got a purpose, they've got tools, and most importantly, they've got confidence.
So the takeaway is pretty clear, right? When you're up against a genuine, malicious oppressor, the answer isn't to run or hide. It's to build strength and unity. That collective power, that was their shield. And with that shield, they drove the bully away permanently. Okay, let's move on to our second story, the invader and the escalation. Now, what's so interesting here is that we're looking at a totally different kind of problem, but the initial reaction to just use brute force is exactly the same. So, the problem this time. Motu and Patlu wake up one day, and there is a massive beehive on their roof. And these aren't friendly bees. They're aggressive, they're territorial, they've basically taken over the house. So the mission seems simple enough. Get rid of the bees.
But what happens next is just this hilarious cascade of failure. Attempt number 1, they try to knock it down with a stick. That doesn't work. So attempt 2, they bring out a smoke machine. Nope, that fails too. Then they try covering themselves in blankets to attack it, and for the grand finale, in a moment of sheer desperation, they decide to remove their entire roof just to get to the hive.
And the result of all this effort? Just total failure. I mean, every single thing they tried only made the bees angrier and more agitated. That strategy of just fighting back, of building that wall, it was actually making the whole situation 1,000 times worse.
So, okay, they've tried everything. Every aggressive tactic has failed. So they're finally forced to do something totally different. They stop fighting, and they try talking. And this is the turning point. Patlu goes up to the queen bee, not with a stick or a smoke machine, but with a question. A simple question designed to create empathy. He just asks her, hey, how would you feel if someone just took over your house? He's trying to get her to see it from their side.
And that is the critical shift in strategy. Right there, it goes from force to understanding. They stopped seeing the bees as just a pest to get rid of and started seeing them as, another party in this conflict with their own needs. This is them opening a door instead of trying to build a bigger wall.
And what the queen bee says next reveals everything. She basically says, look, if you had just asked us nicely in the first place, we would have left. It turns out they weren't evil invaders at all. They were just a swarm looking for a home, and they were only attacking because they felt attacked. This whole giant escalating conflict was just one big misunderstanding. And just look at the resolution. It's a complete 180 from where we were. A simple conversation leads to the bees apologizing, they leave behind a gift of honey, and then they just peacefully relocate. No more fighting. So the big lesson from this story? For this kind of problem, a conflict that's really just a misunderstanding, dialogue and empathy worked perfectly, where brute force was a total disaster.
Okay, so let's put these two fables together now. What's the big picture here? What do we actually learn when we look at these two completely different problems and their solutions right next to each other?
Well, when you lay it out like this, it's crystal clear, isn't it? The cat, that was malicious oppression. That needed empowerment and unity, a shield. But the bees, that was just a territorial misunderstanding. That needed empathy and dialogue, a handshake, you see? Trying to talk to the cat would have been useless. And trying to fight the bees, well, we all saw how that turned out.
So what's the big takeaway for you? It's this. Before you do anything, you have to diagnose the problem. Really ask yourself, am I dealing with actual malice here, or is this just a misunderstanding? Because if it's an oppressor, you need to build up strength. That's your shield. But if it's a misunderstanding, empathy and communication are your best tools. That's your handshake. Choosing the right strategy from the start, that's everything. And that really leaves us with one final thought. The next time you find yourself in any kind of conflict, big or small, at work, with family, wherever, just take a second and ask yourself that one question first. Does this problem need a shield, or does it need a handshake? Because getting that answer right could change absolutely everything.